We have a lot to discuss in today's video, including some trade talk around the Edmonton Oilers, as well as the Nashville Predators. We have the latest updates on Jeremy Swayman and his potential new contract with the Boston Bruins. Sounds like there's lots of work to be done there. Plus, Ryan Getzlaf is getting a job with the league. The Lightning are in the process of being sold. We have lots more information and rumors around what's going on with the offer sheets that the St. Louis Blues used to attack the Edmonton Oilers. Plus, more news from the Maple Leafs press conference involving the Matthews captaincy. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, there's lots to talk about today. It's really been a busy couple of days of news here around the NHL, which is nice this deep into August. Of course, usually, we've had long cycles here of dry spells of not a lot to talk about. So it's kind of nice to have some action around the league here over the past couple of days. We'll start first with the news we got around the Tampa Bay Lightning. It sounds like owner Jeff Vinnick's in the process of selling the team, or at least a big chunk of it. It doesn't sound like he's going to be selling the full stake in the team, but the Lightning are definitely going through a multi-stage sale process right now. Sounds like Vinnick is going to retain a percentage of the team, and it sounds like he's still going to retain some duties within the team, but I guess the buyer's name is Doug Ostermer. He is buying a significant percentage. We don't know the exact amount or whatnot, but the valuation used for this sale is valuing the Lightning close to $2 billion. That is a lot of dough. Considering that Jeff Vinnick bought the team in 2010 for $170 million, that is a substantial increase over the past 14 years. So that's kind of crazy when you think about it from those terms. Sounds like this might be, like I said, a multi-style or multi-stage option here, where I believe it sounds like Ostermer is going to buy a chunk of it and then maybe take a chunk again later down the road. We'll have to wait for more details on that front. But considering the Ottawa Senators were the most recent team to be sold late last offseason, and that came in, was it 900 and I think it was 950 if I'm not mistaken, just shy of $1 billion, and this is going to be up close to $2 billion, so it's pretty well double the price. I mean, I'm sure Gary Bettman and the other owners are loving that, just rubbing their hands, going, that's great for everybody else and all their valuations, especially as they have to be getting closer to thinking realistically about opening the process for expansion. I can just imagine what the next expansion fee is going to be. We don't have any definitive information or scoops to suggest when that's going to be, but I honestly would be surprised if it's not within the next year. But that's just my own personal take. Some news today as well regarding former Anaheim Ducks captain Ryan Getzlaf. He had been working with the Ducks as a player development coordinator since June of 2023. He's going to be leaving that post and taking a job with the league, working with his old teammate and buddy George Parros in the Department of Player Safety. So of course I know George Parros, probably it's fair to say, is not the most popular guy amongst the fan base of the NHL. I know there's a lot of people, myself included. My biggest gripe with the Department of Player Safety, I feel like there's a major lack of consistency. You'll see one player do something and get X for punishment, and then another player will be completely different. To me, it's mind-boggling how they look at things, and you see similarities. You think the punishment fits the crime, and then it's completely different. So I'm not sure what the long-term play here is for Getzlaf, but obviously he'll get into the Department of Player Safety, and we'll see what happens next. Obviously, like I said, it's obviously him and Parros were teammates for a long time, know each other quite well, and I'm sure they'll likely work well together. Some other news as well from the Toronto Maple Leafs press conference that happened today. Of course, we got the official announcement of Auston Matthews becoming the 26th captain in Maple Leaf history, the first captain that's U.S. born. So that's a big significant thing for the team. Obviously, John Tavares, of course, was there. I did do a video on this earlier dedicated to kind of recap that press conference. The main reason I'm bringing it up here again in this video is that Elliotte Friedman has since put out a surprise 32 Thoughts podcast and had some more things to add around that topic, as several other topics that we're going to discuss here throughout the video. Elliotte says that he believes that this was done with the likelihood that JT is getting an extension. He felt there was no likelihood that was going to be announced today, because obviously, even he said, even if it's already been agreed to, there was no way they were going to announce it today to kind of take the spotlight away from the captaincy and being passed down to Auston Matthews. It's Austin's day of recognition. They didn't want to take anything from that. He did not mention any kind of, rumor about what kind of term or money, but he feels like that the next contract is obviously going to have to be shorter term and less money. Everybody knows that. That's pretty clear, pretty obvious. But he also wonders if this is kind of a sign that the team sees John Tavares' role within the team kind of changing, which makes sense as well. As he mentioned, John Tavares is not the fastest guy in the world. He never really has been, but he's a very competitive, hardworking player and still has lots left in the tank. He can still be a player that produces a fair bit and, can certainly contribute to the offense. There's no doubt about that, but his numbers last season was the worst seasons, I believe, since his rookie year, production-wise. So, that's a telling tale. Is, Father Time catching up to him? I think it's fair to say a little bit. Father Time is undefeated. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody, goes through this. It's a natural part of getting a bit older. But it doesn't mean he can't have a role within the team that's different and still very effective. And he wonders if that's kind of the case here with JT, that, perhaps they kind of, even if the extension's not completely worked out, that it's, probably not going to take too long to do that. I know myself, I had heard a lot of reporters suggest that, you're probably looking at maybe 3 or 4 years at most for term, and likely looking at it. I think for the cap to work, it's going to have to fall down to I would say at most $6 million, but probably even less. Maybe even 5. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure what they're going to agree to. I don't have any idea how Tavares feels about it, but he was paid very handsomely on his last deal. I think it's fair to say that he was not an $11 million player most, if not all, of those seasons. So was he overpaid? Sure. Is that his fault? No, it's not. It's not at all. And no matter, and I know the Leaf fans always use the excuse of, well, other teams like the Sharks were offering even more, and that's great, but it doesn't matter. It was an overpayment. I mean, that just, he had the market cornered on his free agency. It was a unique time, and he got a unique contract and get overpaid. It happens a lot. Doesn't mean he hasn't been a good player for them. He's been a very good player for them and very productive player, and he's got one of the biggest goals of recent memory, getting them past the Tampa Bay Lightning to win a playoff series for the first time in X number of years. So, I mean, it's not like he hasn't been important. He has been. It's just, this next phase of his career is going to be different. Maybe he takes, like Elliot said on the podcast, he feels like maybe they're trending towards him having a different role, playing less minutes, making less money. So I would not be surprised, based on Friedman's comments here, that a John Tavares contract extension is likely going to come soon enough. And we'll have to wait and see exactly what it is. I know yesterday we talked about the ridiculous article that came from the New York Islanders writer on Eyes on Isle's website about a possible return of Tavares to the Islanders, which if you watch that video, you'll know that I completely shredded that author and said that was ridiculous and it wasn't going to happen. But I thought it was interesting. I wanted to get everybody else's take, but I thought there was no chance of that happening. Although I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility of him leaving Toronto. I would not rule that out. But, before this news from Elliot today, I was not really sure what the future held for Tavares. I just didn't see it as a return to Long Island. But based on Brian Treeling's comments today as well, he did say that they hadn't figured out, because he was asked if Tavares would at least still wear an A. And he did say yes, but they hadn't really figured out the rest of the letters and the leadership for everything yet. They'll probably wait for training camp and have Craig Berube's input on that as well and see. But he expected Tavares to still wear an A. So obviously, Tavares is home there. His wife is there. They have, three young children. He doesn't sound like really wants to go anywhere. It's them to Leafs want to re-sign him for a more reasonable contract for his age and, productivity level that he's expected here through his mid to late 30s, then that probably makes sense for them. So we'll see where things go on that front. But as far as Tavares leaving, sounds very unlikely, and he's likely signing an extension in the not too distant future. Now, as far as the offer sheets go, Elliot had lots to say about that. Obviously, we know that Broberg and Holloway both signed offer sheets with the St. Louis Blues, and as I had said, he kind of used a very similar terminology, saying that the move to sign and offer these offer sheets was very calculated and aggressive and done with purpose. They attacked both of these players at the same time. He said the belief was that if they only offer sheeted one player, that they would have less odds of getting that player. That Edmonton would have more flexibility with the other player remaining unsigned. It could have impacted their ability to get that player signed, and they would have had to probably drag it on longer. But the point here was to kind of really handcuff them with both of the contracts. He says Broberg was asking the Oilers for around $1.8 million, whereas Holloway was asking for around $1.2 million. Both guys were looking for that 1 to 2 year contract term. So, I mean, those are reasonable numbers and far less than these offer sheets were for. Now, the report from Bob Stauffer, he did talk about that as well yesterday, saying that Ken Holland and the management team was instructed, but from the higher-ups and ownership levels of the Oilers around December, January, to get these guys signed, to take advantage of the fact that their seasons weren't going great and they were in the minors to try to get deals done. And Friedman, he didn't dispute any of that, but he said that from what he heard on Broberg, that there was no interest whatsoever on Broberg's side to sign a contract. He knew his season wasn't going great and that he kind of wanted to punt it to the offseason with the hope that things would get better and that he would have better leverage to get a better contract. So there was no chance of Broberg signing during the year. So I know we said like it's a bad look for Holland and company to not get this done, but if the player had no interest to sign, it's not entirely their fault. Now, Holloway, on the other hand, I don't know about that. He said obviously, they might have been able to get that done, but obviously they didn't. But they targeted both players for sure as a way to make sure that the Oilers had no easy way out. They also waited to the timing of the offseason that they did, because one thing they were concerned about was, that when you have a player that's that's filed for arbitration on your team, when that contract's settled, you get a second buyout window. Well, the Oilers didn't have a player in that predicament, but they could have traded for a player who was. If you take a look at all the ARB cases that were pending, they felt if they did this before all those cases were done, there would be a chance that they would be able to bring in a player that has arbitration rights and then be able to get a second buyout window, buy out another contract, maybe a more substantial one, and create the space that way to keep the players. So they wanted to make sure that all the ARB cases were done with, so there was no chance that was going to happen. So again, very strategic, very deliberate in that sense, so that was not going to be a possibility. He also goes on to say that with Evander Kane, a lot of the issues, because we've been hearing mixed messages about, is he having surgery, is he not having surgery, is he ready to start the season, is he not? And Stauffer's information most recently in the last day or so said he believes Kane is going to have surgery and will be out and will not be ready to start the season. He's going to be on LTIR for a significant period of time. And Elliott goes on to say that that's indeed what he's heard, the same thing, but a big part of the holdup as to why Kane has not had the surgery as of yet, or why the decision wasn't fully made. It was more so around what doctor was going to do the surgery and when the doctor would be available to do said surgery. Of course, like doctors, he said, like everybody else, they take a lot of vacation time in the summer. And if you want to be very particular with who does your surgery, and when you have those kind of options as a pro athlete, you're going to be, then it makes sense that he's going to be picky on who does it, and when, of course, he's going to, kind of be stuck with their schedule to some degree as well. So the belief is that Kane is going to have surgery sometime soon, and that he's going to be out several months. Elliott didn't say that a specific timeline. He wasn't aware of exactly how long it would be, but it wasn't going to be like just a few weeks or a few months. It's going to be an extended period of time. Now, some people, he said, had been asking him about the possibility of being out for the entire season and maybe coming back for playoffs. Could the Oilers pull the Kucherov here? And he said that he didn't know that the recovery would be that long, so couldn't really speak to the fact that was even possible. But again, either way, with Kane expected to have the surgery late this summer to go on LTIR, that will give them a much needed flexibility with the salary cap, that they won't need to move as much money if they do want to match both of these contracts. Also, he went on to say that if the Oilers want to make a move when it comes to Cody Ceci, he's been probably the main name that's been out there for being traded to create the space. He believes they had options and could easily do that if they really wanted to. There's been some talk about the Montreal Montreal Canadiens. And no, Elliot didn't mention Montreal, but I've seen lots of other articles linking Ceci to Montreal. Montreal has the cap space, and of course they're known for taking advantage of other teams like they did with Sean Monahan when they needed to make a deal to get an extra asset. It could be something that's intriguing to them to take that final year of Cody Ceci on. So not a given that Cody Ceci gets moved, because it really is going to boil down to if they're going to match both offer sheets. If they're not going to match on Broberg, they likely don't need to do this. And to be honest, I think he also goes on to talk too about how is this going to impact the room. Are either of these players, is it going to be awkward with them and their teammates if they're matched? And, with Broberg, like, he would be making more money than Bouchard. I mean, Bouchard is going to be in line for a massive extension, so it wouldn't be for long. But, it could create a bit of a dynamic, so you got to be careful of that. But for the amount of money that they're offering Broberg, I'm starting to think that they may not match that one, but Holloway is, a small enough number that I think they can probably swallow that one if they really want to keep him. Or maybe they say, you know what, neither player is significant enough that we're going to let them go. I don't know what they're going to do. But if they do want to move Ceci and have more flexibility to match, the option's there, and there is belief that Montreal would be one of the teams that he would likely go to. So we'll see. Now, there are a couple other rumors around why this happened with these offer sheets as well. Friedman said he couldn't really confirm any of these, but there's been lots out there that he's heard. He's heard of, obviously, Peter Chiarelli, former Oilers GM. He works for the Blues now. So there's one rumor says, well, he hates the Oilers. He used to work there, got fired, and wanted to attack them. Obviously, Ken Holland, former GM of the Oilers, who just recently left. Great buddies with Doug Armstrong. They play golf together all the time. And obviously, he's not an Oiler anymore, so maybe Armstrong is getting revenge for Holland. He feels if Ken Holland was still there, this probably wouldn't have happened, because he wouldn't want to do that to his good friend. Of course, Stan Bowman has been a long-time rival of Doug Armstrong, back for the Chicago-St. Louis rivalries over the years when he was leading the Blackhawks in front office. So, again, it could be a case of Bowman's back on the job. He's new to this team, only been there a short time. Let's attack him and make him work. There's all kinds of theories out there as to why this happened. Some other theories that I've seen out there is Alex Steen, of course, is the new assistant general manager, and will be taking over the GM role in the future for Armstrong. Maybe this is kind of, more of a fresh approach from him to be more aggressive. I don't know. Either way, there apparently was rumors of the Blues having interest in both of these players dating back to some time ago. So, again, we don't know exactly as to why they decided to do this. Obviously, they liked the players, thought they could get them, and at the end of the day, it's all business. But there's tons of rumors out there as to why and how it all came together. Another quick note as well, before we get into a couple other rumors, is we talked a lot about the 2018 World Junior case and the trial that's now expected to start April 2025. We talked about that yesterday with the update. Of course, like I said, there's a chance it gets delayed back to September, but they're hoping and aiming for April. I think it was the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. But there's another incident out there, in case people have forgotten, but Rick Westhead did do a follow-up. And Halifax police, because this would have been in Halifax in 2003, the Canadian World Junior team in that city for that tournament was also hit with some pretty serious allegations that came out after the 2018 stuff did, regarding some sexual assault that supposedly took place there as well. And Halifax police, the only thing they would really comment to him is that it was still under investigation. Rick West has said that they've spoken to numerous people who have provided information to them about the incident, but they really couldn't go into any further details. But it's certainly not a closed matter. It doesn't mean that they will never come with charges. We don't know. I know it's been a long time though, so hard to say where it's going. But then again, we thought the 2018 thing would drag on a long time too before there were charges. So I don't know. But anyway, just the main update is that it is still indeed under investigation and they're still working on it. So we don't know what will come from it, if anything, down the road. Another big update as well from Friedman today regarding Jeremy Swayman. Apparently him and the Boston Bruins are not anywhere close to a new contract. We've heard numerous times throughout the last probably 3 to 4 weeks. It's not often that it really has been brought up by many media who had any kind of intel, but most people, of course, would say it's early, no need to panic, and I agree. There's still plenty of time. Like I said before, when you get into like the middle of summer and you're well past free agency, but you're not really near training camp yet, there's not really a pressure point, right? We're not anywhere close to being in danger of missing camp or in danger of missing games. That's when the pressure point hits and both sides start to feel like, this has not come together. We need to figure out getting something done. Who's going to budge first, right? And, that's usually one side blinks and then you get a deal. That's a lot of times how things go down. But, of course, in this case, we don't know that. But Swayman and the Bruins, not close. He goes on, Elliott did say that, Swayman had the option. If he would have elected salary arbitration, which I know he did not want to do, and he swore he didn't want to go through that again. But if he would have, they could have elected a 2-year deal, which could have walked him straight to UFA status. So, again, he could have been... I don't want to use the word dirty because it's not really dirty. It's business. And really, every player is going to do what's best for him and every team's going to do what's best for them. And sometimes it's not the same thing. As much as you want to see something remain together and get it worked out, it doesn't always work out. And we don't have any reason to think right now that it's not going to work out. But Swayman and the Bruins are nowhere near a deal as of right now. So that doesn't sound promising. But like I said, we're still about a month from training camp. So, there's time. But if we get a couple more weeks go by here and there's no real progress and movement, the pressure point's going to slowly build. And especially where they traded Allmark, they're not going to want to have to rely heavily on Jonas Korpisalo for the first part of the season, ideally. So we'll see what happens, but no, it doesn't sound promising as of today. And lastly, he goes on to talk about Yaroslav Askarov as well, the Nashville Predators' young goaltender who's an up-and-comer, former first-round pick, and a goalie who at this point wants to be traded from Nashville since they extended UC Saros and brought in another solid backup goalie ahead of him. He's kind of blocked from getting to the NHL right now. And one of the pieces of news that he provided today in his podcast was that an Askarov trade does seem pretty likely if they can figure it out before the start of the NHL season. Apparently, Askarov does not want to play in the American Hockey League this year. He feels he's put in his time and has, in his mind, played well enough and is justified enough to have a legit shot at playing in the NHL. So clearly, they're trying to find a trade for him to a team that feels comfortable giving him an NHL shot, because the teams are not going to want to trade for him if they don't think he's going to be happy or he's going to want to turn around and request a trade again if he doesn't get that shot, right? A lot of teams are going to be leery of that, but he's very much in play. No real clear-cut teams out there linked to him just yet, but I know there was previously a lot of teams. We had heard Carolina, we had heard Buffalo. I think there were some rumblings about San Jose possibly. There's a number of teams out there that I think could look at, they're at least as a backup goaltender to have an opportunity there. So again, we'll see what comes together between now and the start of the season, but expectations are that he really wants to get moved before the season, and Nashville is trying to accommodate, but they have to find a deal that works for them. They're not going to just give him away, and not get the return that they think is fair. So we'll see what happens there, but another player to watch for here in the coming weeks. That is all your news updates for today. Certainly let me know your thoughts and everything down in the comment section so we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.